right. Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's 6 strategies to build an accurate revenue forecast webinar. My name is Jan Moody, and I am your webinar hostess, which means that I will be handling all of your questions throughout today's webinar. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little question icon there, and you'll also see a chat bubble. Please feel free to use that throughout the course of the webinar to ask any questions and chime in and make this as interactive as possible. This session is being recorded, so it will be made available to all attendees if you want to check it out again or share it with any of your colleagues. And in just a moment here, I'm going to launch a couple of polls so that we can get a better sense of the information that we want to share with you today. And with that, thank you so much for being here. And Stephanie, you can go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We know, forecasting is at the, top of the mind for everyone. And it is a challenge across organizations. So Jan is putting the polls up right now. So feel free to answer those. The first one that came up is, what are your organization's top challenges as it relates to forecasting? So go ahead and choose one of those. All right. So as we go through, and Jan will put those polls up, today, our agenda, what we're going to learn is we're going to dig into problems with forecasting. So really looking at why forecasts are inaccurate in the first place, what causes the lack of confidence in the forecast. And then we want to look at these 6 tenets to the accurate forecast. So we're going to look at how AI can boost that. We're going to look at how to get you a more confident forecast. And then we're going to dig into the solution a little bit for a little bit of a demo, just a short demo, so you can see this in action. And then as you are thinking of questions, feel free to pop those in the chat, and then we'll take care of those towards the end. All right. So as we think about forecasting, when we look at the problems with forecasting, it comes down to the fact everything is going to be centered around data. And the first thing that we think of is, data, it comes in from the rep. You think of the CRM, almost everything that the rep is doing with the sale, they're having to put in the CRM. How many times have you said, if it's not in the CRM, it doesn't exist? So understanding and getting that data in is crucial. But as sales leaders, rep ops leaders, what do you want your team selling, right? And reps hate the CRM. So some of these things that get in the way of an accurate forecast is, number one, that intuition bias. You've got those reps that have happy ears. They've got rose-colored glasses. They think everything is going to close. They've got a good, relationship with their main contact. But just because they have that relationship, it's important, but it doesn't mean that they're engaging with the right personas, that they've got the economic buyer on board. It doesn't mean that they understand the selling process, the buying process, the paper process. What does it take to get a deal closed with this organization? It doesn't mean they've asked the right questions. And so they tend to commit everything, move everything into late stages. So that presents a challenge because it's hard to understand what's real, what's not. Then you've got, the classic sandbaggers. Sometimes they're not doing it on purpose. Sometimes they're just conservative. Maybe they've committed deals and they've pushed, they've lost deals. And they've, let down the organization. And so they feel like, I'm afraid to commit it. I'm afraid that it's going to get pulled into the light and then I'm not going to close it. So I'd rather leave it back. But then you have those reps, we all know them, that are like, I'm going to hide my deals because I know when I've got the big, exciting deal that you're going to ask me more questions. The director's going to ask me more questions. The VP is going to get engaged. Like there's going to be a spotlight on me. So I want to keep that off. And maybe they want that hero complex of, I want to come in at the end and I want to save the day. I've got these deals. I think we're going to close them and I'm going to save the day. So not being able to cut through that noise and understand where's the risk, which of these deals is real, being able to understand the data. Are the reps following the process? Are deals in the right stages? Are they forecasted correctly? That's a challenge. Then we have, reps grew up in all different organizations. They have different types of selling processes that they've learned that are just kind of ingrained in them. And so not having the consistency, a lot of times you'll have every rep is doing their own thing. The way they look at the sales stages, the forecasting process is all different. The way that the different teams, it's like the director's like, well, I know what I think a commit deal is. This team thinks it's something different. Over here, we think it's something different. So how do you get confidence in the forecast? Then that third piece is that, there's a lack of technology, a lack of automation. Technology has come a long way, but there's a lot of organizations that are still doing it exactly the same way they did it 30 years ago. You're in reports, you're in spreadsheets, there's no automation, there's no scoring, there's no risk. Like it's the same way that we've been doing it. Data is all, in different places. Every director, every team has a different spreadsheet. The things that they're looking at, the things they're tracking is different than this team, then you've got one business unit's doing it completely different than over here. So man, if you're an executive and you're trying to make sense of what's the number, what's rolling up, well, that's a challenge. So then it requires lots of manual effort, lots of gut, feel, which, for you that have been in sales for years, that gut is important. The art of selling, the wisdom that you have acquired from your experience is key. But the thing that forecasts are lacking when they're just forecasting out of the CRM, when they're in static reports, when they're in the BI tools, when they're in spreadsheets, they're lacking the insights. They're lacking data. They're lacking that AI and machine learning that's going to guide and give them science to merge and wrap around the art of forecasting. So let's jump in and see what happens. And here's one key stat that I want to share with you that is super important, that having a formal and structured forecasting process can increase your win rate by about 12.6%. So imagine if you could take your team and increase their win rates by 12%, even 5%, what would that do to your organization? What kind of revenue would come in? How many more deals would you win? How many more reps would hit quota? And then your attrition would go down. Thinking of those things just by having a formal and structured process. So what I want to do today is walk you through these 6 tenets of what we believe are, the accurate, how to get to an accurate forecast. And what we're going to do is kind of just walk through each one. We've got some tips and best practices, and then we'll show you how this plays out within the solution. So the first thing is sales process and sales methodology. I talk to sales leaders and RevOps leaders all day long. And it's interesting to see the number of organizations that do not have consistency in their process, or they have their sales process mapped out, but they don't have a clearly defined process that's like, here's the milestones. This is what needs to happen at certain stages. So when we think of the process, we're thinking of what what's happening? Where are we at in this selling process? What are the different steps that have to take place? Very, key steps that, if you're in the process of rethinking these things, it's, what are the things that need to happen to close this deal? What's happening in that sales journey? We're qualifying deals. We're getting discovery. We're asking the right questions. We're, in tech, we're doing demos. We're doing, what's security reviews, all of that, thinking about ROI, where are we building our business case as to why it should be your organization today, why they need to move forward, especially in a time where, they don't want to mess up. They don't want to make the wrong choice. So we've got to make sure that we set up the process in such a way that we make it compelling for them in every single stage, every step of the way. How are we negotiating and contracting, deals that are closed? We got closed won, closed lost, being able to spell this out across the board. This might look different for you based on your journey. So first you've got the process knocked out. This is what our journey is. And it might look different for your new business than your renewal business. Thinking about what's the journey that customers go through in those different segments. It looks different. It shouldn't be the same because they engage with their opportunities differently. So we want this to spell out what's the process. Then methodology. Now there's lots of different methodologies out there, but this is how. How are you going to close this deal? What are the strategic things, the strategies that need to happen to close this deal, to get in every stage what needs to happen? So you might adopt a medic or a med pick, challenger sales, snap selling. You might do value selling, solution selling, gap selling. There's tons of different solutions out there today in how to, what the strategy should be around this. The key is going to be adopting that process and clearly defining what needs to happen. So everyone should be on the same page. If I am qualifying a deal, what are the things that I need to do? In the past, it's, are you using BANT? What's happening? What are those things that need to be discovered and identified to qualify? What needs to happen at discovery? So aligning the process to the methodology so that in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, this is what needs to happen. Then every rep, every director, every sales leader needs to be aligned. They need to understand it. They need to be trained on it. It needs to be so simple and repeatable that they get everything that needs to happen. This helps you ramp reps quicker. It helps you to be able to identify where are we at in the process and what's missing. When it's easy, when it's repeatable, when it's known, when it's trained on, when it's been fully communicated and everyone is following this consistent process, then it's much easier to adopt it. And it's not like, well, this rep's doing it, but this rep's not, here's not. You need to enforce this process. So we also need to make sure, reps hate the admin work. We all know they hate the admin, they hate the CRM. I was a rep for a while. And it's in those years, I would rather be selling. So we've got to be able to show the value, what's in it for me, to the rep. If it's just, we need this, it needs to be consistent. Why? Because this process is going to help you close deals quicker, and then we need to show them, we need to be able to bring them the data that's showing them that they're understanding what that next step is, that they understand what the process is. And by being able to show them that data, you need to be able to quantify and score what is happening on these opportunities. We're guiding them to where they should be focused, to drive action, but also to help with coaching. For management, that first line manager is there to hold their hand and guide them and coach and stuff. But a lot of times coaching is the very first thing that gets left off the table. because they are needing to inspect opportunities and make sure that, validate the pipeline, and they're constantly, chasing reps down. And so the first thing that's going to help with that is clearly defining and aligning the process, making it easy and repeatable, and really making it easy for them to adopt it. But then when you look at the forecasting process, so pipeline is one thing, but then it's, the pipeline is telling you where are we at in the selling process. But what a lot of organizations that are older have done is they, in terms of the forecasting process, they just link a forecast label, a bucket, forecast category like commit, upside, best case. They link it to a sales stage. But really, the sales stage is already telling you, this is where I'm at in the process. What the forecast process, the forecast categories, those buckets are doing is telling you how strong is this deal. You could have a deal that is in a stage 4, but is still a pipeline deal because there's things that have to happen with that deal. Now, it shouldn't be in pipeline because you should have more confidence at that point. But it's how strong is this? When is this deal going to close? Can I count on this deal? So when it comes to categories, very common categories, pipeline, upside, best case, commit, you might have most likely, but clearly defining those buckets as well. For most people, it's like, pipeline, it should only be a pipeline deal at the beginning of the quarter. If you still have a pipeline deal in the last month of the quarter and you have a 90-day selling cycle, then you are not thinking about the closing time. It's just, it was created, that close date was established, and then the rep did not come back to it. Those deals need to consistently be moving forward. So it's, as you get to that last month of the quarter, you should be really just engaging with whether you're calling them best case, upside, your commit deals. Pipeline should be moved on. Either it's close lost or I am correcting that close date. Now, with forecasting, in thinking about what are the challenges that we have the intuition bias, we don't have, good visibility into the pipeline, what's real, what's not. And so what happens is we have to overcome these challenges. And these are different things that organizations have done. They've instituted QBRs. Let's talk about what was the performance last quarter, and then what's that reps, plan for this quarter moving into the future. So being able to that they've thought through, what are you going to do to be able to hit that number? A lot of organizations are massaging data. It's not good. So you've got RevOps that's chasing people down. You've got managers chasing people down to find out what's happening with an opportunity. Pipeline reviews, one-on-ones, going through the pipeline, each opportunity to see where it's at, who are we engaged with, and go through those questions, which we'll talk about soon. In terms of the forecast calls, this is where we're digging into what's your number, where are you at in hitting that number? What are the deals that are on the line? What help do we need to get those deals across the line? We're not talking about the whole pipeline here. And then the big thing is hedging. Instituting hedging, being able to, be able to call deals in and out as a manager. These are the deals I believe in. These are deals I don't. So these are the challenges, what they've done to overcome those challenges. And then the other thing that you really need to think about as you're defining the cadence is, okay, what of those meetings, which of those meetings am I instituting? How frequently are we having those meetings with reps? How frequently is, management meeting? How frequently is leadership meeting? What's the agenda that's going to take place? Who's going to be attending? And then how frequently are we going to submit that forecast? So some tips as you think about this, and you think about putting your forecasting process together, you think about what that cadence should look like, in terms of the forecast, having both that top down, you get from from the finance and revenue, you get that quota, the target that you need to hit. But so often we're just focused on the forecast call, that we need to see how are we tracking against the forecast, but then how are we tracking against the target? Are we staying aligned with what the plan was out of the gate? So being able to track both of those items. And then so often as I talk to organizations, they're starting the forecasting process at a management or a leadership level. And it's the rep that has the most engagement with the accounts, with the opportunity. And so making sure that they are involved in that process is key. In that if it's that, well, we don't trust what they're saying, then that's where it comes to, is your process clearly defined? Does everyone understand it? So making sure that's happening, getting everyone on the same page, are we communicating it? Is it easy to adopt? And then making sure that when you think about the meetings, we don't want to meet just to meet. We want it to be effective. We want there to be some motivation in it. We want to hold people accountable. That's not the fun part of it, but we have to hit this number. But there needs to be that blend of understanding what those expectations are and who's at those meetings, and really enforcing that process. Understanding who hasn't updated their forecast, understanding, what needs to happen at certain times. So we don't just throw the playbook out the window and then, it's a mad scramble at the end of the quarter, and everyone is then getting, letting fear take over and really guide them. That it's the data is there, the process is there. If you use it, if you work the process, you're gonna be successful. So then we come to, how do we make this easier? So the third step is really looking at where can you add automation? And there's lots of places that we can automate. Let's take, in today's world, it's like we need to increase productivity. Some of your people are at home still. We need to make sure that they're engaging. We need to hold them accountable, but we also need to make it easier for them to win and close deals. And so here's some different places that we can really dig in and automate. Capturing selling activities, those emails that are coming in, emails going out. How is the rep and the customer? How are they both engaging? Is the rep following up? Is the customer responsive? Being able to have actionable alerts. So we'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, but being able to serve up, guide reps, validate the pipeline, and be able to guide reps to that next best action. So when we can automate this, we are driving consistency in the process, but we're also making it really easy to ramp up new reps, because we're guiding them through a process that they are learning in getting more comfortable with. We're guiding them through what should happen next. So some of the things that this can look like is, definitely tracking the level of engagement, tracking that, at that role level, making sure, like, are we engaged with the economic buyer? Is the customer responsive? If it's, the rep can be like, oh, I've reached out to them, I'm following up. But if they're being ghosted, then that's not a deal that I want to engage with. That's not a deal that I want to count on and go to the board with. So questions that we can automate and that we need to be thinking about automating, because sometimes in your forecasting meetings, you spend so much time in compliance and you don't have any time for strategy. So being able to quickly identify, when's the last meeting? Is the next meeting scheduled? Do we have next steps in place? What criteria is missing across the deal? So guiding rep on, when you come into the next meeting, what needs to happen? So it's, as a manager, I then know, here's where I need to coach my rep. And then as a rep, I'm getting in the moment coaching of what I need to do to my deals, with the dates. Are we engaged with the right people, the right amount of people? Are we engaged with the right roles? I can understand what needs to happen on my deals, so that when I walk into a pipeline review with my manager, it is a more effective and efficient meeting, we can strategize. I get to pick my boss's brain, and we get to really partner with, how do we move these deals forward? What are things that we can do? How do we engage the Exactly Village to be able to drive this forward? So now that you've got more visibility with enforcing a consistent process, then it becomes being able to make sure that you're inspecting the pipeline to get more increased visibility. So what are things that I need to do? What are things I need to be thinking about as I inspect the pipeline? You know, what does my pipeline generation look like? Are we filling the pipeline at the appropriate amount? You know, we want to talk about pipeline coverage. We want to be able to keep our finger on the pulse of risk. What are deals that need attention? I want to be proactive. You know, in the world today, I think it's just, there's so much in sales. We react, we put out fires. You know, we find out that deals are slipping, and we run to it like when we find out it's going to be lost. Well, what happened in between the selling process? All those different moments that we could show up and really engage with the customer and be different and provide a different selling experience. We need to proactively know where to engage and how to engage. Deal age, how old are our deals? What are deals that can be pulled forward? So as we look at these different areas, here's some things that you can be asking yourself. You know, in terms of pipeline generation, is the pipe filling at the appropriate rate? You know, being able to understand too, are we engaging with the right type of opportunities? You know, in terms of when you've got insights, when you have analytics, and you can see we close this source at a much higher rate than we close any other source. Well, then by golly, I want to see that the pipeline is engaging with our highest converting type of opportunities. You know, whether it's that individual, I'm adjusting the ICP, being able to make sure that it's good, solid pipeline that we're filling that pipeline with. You know, in terms of coverage, you know, you can have a big pipeline. Yeah, that can happen. But are they good deals? Because a lot of times when we tell reps, you need 3x pipeline, you need 4x pipeline, I can create opportunities right now today. I can do some account planning. Yeah, I plan on going to this account and trying to pitch this product to them. I'm going to create an opportunity. Or this deal's been dead for months. I keep pushing it. I keep pushing it forward and forward and forward because it hits my 3x number. And if you are paid on the volume of your pipeline, closing my deals. So the only way that we can see through this is how healthy is the opportunity? Is it strong? Are the right things happening on it? So making sure when you think of coverage that it is not just a formula, but it's taking into account where is the risk? You know, what are my healthy opportunities? Because if it is old deals, or are there deals that we're being ghosted and we don't have activity on, like, I don't want them to count in the coverage, because pipeline coverage can sometimes give you this very false sense of security that then it changes the way that you're partnering with marketing. And so it's marketing needs to know, what do we need? What's converting well? What's not? You know, what type of deals? How do we want to engage? So deal age, understanding quickly the quality of my pipeline. Do I have deals that have been open for 300 days and we have a 60-day sales cycle? Get them out, you know? So what's the easiest way to engage with that? How healthy is the pipeline? You know, do we have a lot of low risk deals, medium risk deals, high risk deals? That changes things in how we engage. Do we have the right resources in the right place? Do we know who needs to engage and what needs to happen? All of those things are things that when you think of risk, we need to think about, why do we lose deals? You know, okay, well, we need to be able to identify those things early on and embed that in the sales process, in the forecasting process. But it's difficult to identify those things when you don't have a consistent process. Being able to understand, what are those deals that we can pull forward, those deals that are expected to close next quarter, but they have momentum, we have the right people, we have the right engagement. But originally we talked about this timeline back here. So that's what we're all driving towards. Well, you know, can we get it done earlier? Because that gives less time for competition to come in and swoop it up. for them to come in and dazzle them. And maybe they've got this great selling process, but not a good product. But it changes the thought process of the people that we're engaging with. So thinking about all of those things is key. In terms of leveraging data, managing the forecast, if you do not have access to the data, these are some key things that we look at here at Exactly, that being able to consistently understand the roll up. If you're in spreadsheets, you might have spreadsheets where you're forecasting and you have the roll up that inputs a forecast, but are you able to deal back that number? Do you understand the path that your team is going to take to be able to hit that number? Or is it gut feel? Can you distinguish whether it's gut feel? Can you identify the gaps? And if you're working off spreadsheets where they're updated weekly, or some organizations, they're pulling it monthly and they're working out of it monthly, then that's not accurate data. It's static. And so as the pipeline changes every day, the forecast changes every day, keeping your finger on the pulse of that gap is crucial. Do we have enough forecast coverage? So is there enough, weighted pipeline? Are we able to identify that risk? We just automated, inspected for risk, but can we surface it when we engage with the forecast? Or are we just looking at, here's my commit, here's the forecast call, great, we're on track. Well, how do we know we're on track? We don't know where the fires are. We don't know what might end up pushing or might surprise us at the end and leave us scrambling. Identifying those deals we can pull forward. And then here's where science comes in. What's our past performance? What have we historically done? So being able to dig in with historically where you've been, what's expected to come in the future, this quarter, create and close in quarter, having that visibility and insights is going to be crucial. And then having the ability to hedge. You're doing a bottoms up forecast, or even if you're starting midway and you're starting at that director level, I guarantee you that each leadership level as it goes up is not in agreement with what is being submitted. And so being able to communicate that and be able to engage with the forecast in that way is going to be very important. So some tips. You have to have real-time data, that forecasting data at your fingertips. When you're in reports, not being able to drill in to make sense of the deals, not being able to get answers to questions, not being able to quickly understand, here's the deals that we are counting on, but there's a fire brewing. We've got to get attention to these. We've got to make sure we've got the resources. We've got to figure out strategically, what do we do? Triangulate the data. Data, insights, data, being able to be informed. So you're taking all these pieces that we talked about, on that last screen, being able to understand what we've done, historically. How accurate does my team call the ball? Where does push rate come in? You might close this deal. You might know we're going to close this deal, but are you going to close it this month? Are you going to be able to close it? Do you fully understand? They might say, yeah, you're vendor of choice. We choose you. You're the one we want to go down the rest of the path through and partner with. But then you find out, now we got to go through this big security review. Legal takes 30 days. And you're like, oh my gosh, I committed this deal. And now it's going to take another 45 days to close. We've all had those. It's extremely frustrating because you're like, we're going to close it, but we're counting on that revenue this quarter. And so being able to see that a mile out so that I can make those adjustments, understanding the path. So it's like, we talked about the path, deal backing the forecast. So many organizations just forecast a number, but no one knows how you plan to hit that number. That is crucial because we know there's risk. We know there's surprises. So being able to get ahead of that and be able to understand and track, these are the 50 deals that my team is going to close this quarter to hit this number. When I can see risk surfacing on those deals, then I know, okay, well, this is how we're going to hit the number, but these 5 deals pushed out, or we just lost this one. So now I know out of the, 30 days, 45 days out, that if we don't find new deals to come in, we're not going to hit the number. So it's not just sitting and hoping that things are going to come in, but being strategic in having that data. I would say, being able to model different forecast scenarios. So it's like, here's my deal backed, this is the deals, these are the paths. But, here I know that I always end up closing, 4 deals the last 30 days of the quarter. So here's what I think my best case number is. Here's what I think my worst case number is. Being able to set up and present those different scenarios is going to be important as well. If it's, I'm just pulling my commit deals in. So then what if these upside deals close where all the stars align? Great. They're not all going to close, but I think these 4 could. So being able to pull those in and set up the scenarios so that you have all of the data, all of the information, and as things tweak, you can see those changes. That is going to be crucial. And then being able to check against your target and your forecast call. So being able, you've got, how are we tracking against the plan? Because that plan, if we don't hit that plan, we all know we've seen layoffs right and left in the last year. That if that plan doesn't get hit, the forecasting data is used to inform all of the most important decisions within the business. And so it's if you are not tracking close to that plan, then you have to start thinking about, how many people am I going to have to let go? How does this affect our go-to-market next year? How does this affect our teams? So being able to track against both of those and keeping finance and sales engaged together and breaking that silo down is also going to be very important, because it's going to impact, it might not impact you right this second, but it's going to impact you at the end of the quarter, the end of the fiscal year, as you have to make very difficult decisions. And the last piece that we want to dig into is changes. That you have to be able to see what's changed. You've got to be able to keep your finger on that number. How is the pipeline changing? How's the forecast changing? And what does that mean? Being able to leverage the historical data, being able to understand how accurate did we forecast across the trend. So some best practices for this in terms of what's changed. Thinking about what if you come, it's Friday, you come back on Monday and you're like, oh my gosh, the pipeline, the number has changed by 1.5 million. Well, it's not all bad. It's like, okay, well, what's new? What's been pulled in? What's been pushed out? What do we win? Yay. But what do we lose? So being able to keep the finger on the pulse of those things, and then being able, one of the big things I hear from both CFOs as well as sales leaders is, we push these deals, reps were committing them just last quarter. It was supposed to close a week ago. And now all of a sudden it's closing in 3 months. So being able to understand and easily identify, where did those deals go and where are they now? And then as we think about like the new and the pulled in deals, being able to understand, okay, we had new deals and pulled in deals, but where are they at today? So keeping a track on those things helps you really understand what's happening, what are deals as deals push out. Ooh, pulled in deal, where's it at today? How can I replace it? Is that going to create my new path? So being able to align all of these different strategies is what helps you get to that accurate forecast. Historical trends. If you don't have a consistent process, then you're probably not leveraging your historical data very much, or you don't really trust it. Because if it's not consistent, then I can't trust how much pipeline that we need throughout our stages, throughout our forecast categories, because it's not consistent. So what I did a year ago is not going to really give me that much insight. But once you have that consistent process, then I can look back and see, how does my current period compare at this point in the period? Being able to see how strong is the pipeline. Do we have enough pipeline to support the number, the strength, those commit deals, those weighted opportunities? And then are we continuing to support enough for future so that we're successful? So it's not just this is successful and then we walk into next quarter and it's a nightmare. But how do we create that cycle and keep rolling, that we've got enough pipeline in the quarter, next quarter? And then in terms of forecast accuracy, you hear about even just presenting your forecast call, but and then it's not being able to track, well, how close did we come? So being able to use both the AI, but then also your forecast call to say how good did we call the ball? How accurate is that AI, which I've never used before, so I'm not sure, can we trust it? And that's where that art and science comes in. You can start to see, once you use AI, can I trust it? And how much does my forecast change so that I can see on day one, what is the expected forecast? But if I know that this manager tweaks their forecast so much throughout, they don't do a good job of calling it at the beginning of the quarter, they don't do a good job of leveraging that data, then I can make informed decisions of what that team is going to do right away. All right, so now what we're going to do is jump into the solution and see some of this in action. So as we look at the solution, the first thing is, we are engaging with a bidirectional sync. So when we think of enforcing the pipeline, everything that we're doing in the forecast, if you're doing that in Salesforce, then that can all be written, or in exactly forecasting, that can all be written back to Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, depending on what CRM that you're in. And the same thing if you are inputting and updating opportunities within Salesforce, that can be transferred over as well. But the crucial part of why a solution, why exactly forecasting when you do this stuff, is that one of the things here, we're looking at our team forecast. Okay, we're looking at a sales leader's view, the vice president, and I can see my roll up. So if you're in spreadsheets today and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even understand what the deals are that roll up to my number. Well, let me show you. I can quickly see what's the target. I can see, how much we've booked, what my forecast call is, what is the AI saying, what's the gap to my forecast? So these are formula fields. So for us at Exactly, we're looking at commit deals. So if you have a pipeline deal rolled up in your forecast, you don't really believe in that opportunity. And so it's not going to get pulled in as a forecasted deal. You're going to get visibility of it. So as I come in and I see, let's say I want to see what are my stage 2 or my month 2 opportunities, I can see all of my month opportunities. I can dig in and see what the health score is. I can understand, all of this is configurable on my process. So if we're running MedPick, this is my process here. I can see how my reps are engaging. I can quickly understand if this is a deal I want to pull in, is this a good account that we convert at a high level? What are the ways that I can strategize with my rep when I'm on a forecast call? When we're on a pipeline review call. And so quickly being able to understand that and understand how many alerts do we have on this deal? These are negative. So it's like, if this is a deal that I'm pulling in, that's a challenge. But I can quickly understand and engage with the data and isolate it to say, I just want to see commit. I just want to see best case. Being able to, make comments and engage with the data to make sense of this is what still needs to happen. I need support from, PS. I need to have a technical review, understanding what needs to happen. And then being able to pull these deals out of the forecast. So I'm deal backing. So if I say, I don't want to count on this opportunity, I can pull this out of the forecast right now. And then I can put a comment and communicate why this is being pulled out of the forecast so that we've got that visibility. So as that pipeline changes, as the forecast is adjusting, I can serve up to my leader. These are the deals that I'm backing my forecast with. These are the risks on these opportunities. These are deals that I'm thinking about pulling in. And I can see this across my team and see when they make changes to the forecast. I can see those changes. I can see when they submit their forecast, who's submitted it and who hasn't, to easily understand what's happening, how the forecast has changed, and quickly see, how accurate, what's the AI saying, Being able to understand where are my high risk deals so I can easily identify this is where we need to engage. These are deals that are expected to close next quarter that could be pulled in, and quickly see how strong is my pipeline. Like in this demo, it's like, oh, we don't have much in commit. We've got a lot in upside and a lot in pipeline. So this would make me super nervous as a sales leader. So now what I can do is I can go to my forecast as a sales leader and I can really dig into this data. Because in my roll-up, I'm just seeing how is my team tracking. But now I've got all of these metrics that are what I'm looking at as a sales leader. So what my director's looking at, what my reps are looking at, they're going to see something different here based on what's important to them. But I can quickly see what is, where we're at. I can give my best case, worst case number and see, what's that going to do with our gap to the forecast? What's the AI saying? Remember what my team is rolling up to me. And see all of these different metrics, how they're trending and changing week over week, and quickly understand since last week, the commits have increased by 2.5 million. Great. That's what I want to see. I want to see my upside deals, my pipeline deals. I want to see that they are continuing to move forward and get stronger in the pipeline. So I can quickly see how I'm engaging with the forecast. But the thing with AI is if it's just a number, then this doesn't mean that much to me. But what we've done is brought the data and surfaced it and helped them make sense of how to use this data to inform the forecast. So it's understanding if I've got my categories, my forecast categories, I can quickly understand on my commit deals, how much do we push out? We push out 22% of our commit deals on this day in the quarter. So being able to understand what we win, but if I've got 4.3 million in commit that is open today in quarter, and then what's expected to come in because we're going to push 22% and then we're only going to win 41%, that I can quickly put together my story and know from each of my forecast categories, this is what that expected revenue is, and then being able to understand across my in-quarter create and close deals. So if you've got a less than 90-day sales cycle time, or if you have add-on business or cross-sell business, products that close quick, maybe not all your deals do, maybe not all your segments do, but being able to understand as you go through the quarter, this is what you're modeling out. Okay, what did we do last quarter? What did we do over the last 4 quarters? So the last 4 quarters, I've consistently at day 70 in the pipeline, or in the quarter, I have created and then won 5.8 million. So then I can understand, are we tracking? In this AI is going to change as the data change. As you close deals, let's say your push rate decreases and your win rate increases in the quarter. It's going to give me a real-time adjustments because as an individual rep or as a director, I'm going to be able to see, okay, so my win rate's gone up. So now on this type of deal, it is going to show that on this type of deal, this industry, this size opportunity, this product, whatever it may be, that I am more successful with these deals. So you're going to see those adjustments. So it's going to adjust in time and give you the most accurate data so you can make the most informed decision and have your finger on the pulse of how is my pipeline set up? Where's my risk? Okay, I just want to see my high risk deals across my forecast categories and being able to quickly drill in and understand, okay, of those commit deals, what's happening? What are those opportunities? What needs to happen? So as a manager, I can see, okay, we lost engagement here. We've got to figure out, is this a real opportunity? Can we get them back on track? Or is this just filling up the pipeline? So being able to have access to all of that, to drill in, to make changes, to engage with the opportunity, to engage with the health score, and to be able to understand what's happening across the forecast. Then we look at linearity, we look at deal age. One of the biggest challenges with organizations is not being able to, they close everything at the end of the month. We don't want that. So being able to keep handle on that with linearity. We've talked about the pipeline, being able to slice and dice the pipeline. So being able to engage with the different sales forecast categories, being able to have different lenses that it's like, okay, this is what we want, manager. These are the ways we want you to look at the pipeline, but you can also create your own so that you're pushing out that process. You're helping reps understand, managers, leadership understand what are the lenses you should look through whenever you're engaging with your pipeline, and then be able to see what are those indicators. How is the pipeline moving? Best thing, motivate your reps, bring the commission in. So I can see if I close this deal, which is 82%, I need to set up a meeting. I don't have a meeting scheduled. I don't have next steps in place, but I want to realize this $204K of commission. So what do I need to do? I need to set up a meeting. I need to find out who we're competing against. I need to get this rolling to find out what do we need to do to get this closed this quarter. And then I can drill in and see what has that level of engagement been, drill in to see the content of the emails. As a rep, I can drill in and say, oh, okay, next step. I do know the next step, so I can update that next step right here, which makes it super easy. It's not an exception report that now I have to go look up all these opportunities and sift through all of the fields that every department uses on the opportunity. No, I've got everything here. So I can engage with what I need in the moment and knock this out. I can quickly see, all of the alerts on my opportunities. So I know as a rep, as a manager, where do I need to engage? What's the top priority? And knock these updates out. Then as it comes to changes in the forecast and how do we leverage data, being able to understand what has changed from one time period to the next. So, everything is closing in this fiscal quarter, we went up by 2.4K. Awesome. The pipeline is increasing since last week. Great. Where are those increases? Definitely like to see this versus declining. So this is a positive thing. You can drill in and see what are those deals that you've pulled in. I want to know of these deals that got pushed out. Are there any that we're counting on? So where are they at now? So we've lost some. That's not fun. But being able to adjust this and see, forecast categories, stages, and be able to identify of best case, where are they at today? These have pushed out. They were, in best case expected to close this last quarter, but now they're pushed out far in the future. So this is great for management to be able to dig in and understand and have conversations of, is this just a not right now? And instead of closing this out, this is like your placeholder, which is inflating the pipeline, in not giving us a realistic view of what's expected. Being able to understand, how is the pipeline progressing? What are my deals that are advancing, closing? Where are those new deals? Where are they at today? We've got some in commit that were created last week. Awesome. That's what we're going to use to fill that, those best case deals, are those pushed out deals that were expected to close in the forecast. So I can click in and understand what are those two opportunities. I can see how my pipeline is progressing. Is it building? In the demo, we're in the second week. But what's really important here is in the pipeline trend, I can come here and I can see how does this compare to the same week across the trend? How much pipeline did we have across the trend? How much did we have in each of our categories? Or maybe I want to look at it by stage, being able to bring in metrics to understand, okay, this is where we ended. So, how close were we whenever we came in? How close did we go? You can bring in the AI and say, how close was the AI? And then where did we end? What did we forecast to be able to tell this story, but also to look forward to say, do we have enough pipeline to be successful next quarter with our quota? So being able to have all of that at your fingertips is going to be crucial to make those informed decisions, but it's because you have that consistent process, because you're enforcing your process, your sales methodology, enforcing your forecasting process, getting visibility of the risk, understanding what that next best action is that makes you be able to leverage that data and be able to use it to make informed decisions. So then it comes to, one-on-ones with your team and being able to see, how did we do? How are we doing this quarter? This is great for one-on-one with your rep. What are things that you're doing well? What are things that you're declining in? Where are you improving? Where are you stuck in the mud? So getting insights across the board. How does your win rate compare to the team? Where are deals? Where's your cliff? Where, you got 18% win rate here and then it jumps, where is learning needing to take place? What's your trend? It could be, when you think of like, oh, you win deals in 103 days. Awesome. Where did you come from? Oh my gosh, when you were a newer rep, it took you 400 days to win a deal. Or you had you left deals open. You pushed them. They were placeholders. So you don't have an accurate view because you didn't have rules and you didn't enforce the process. So you let reps keep deals open for a year waiting for the customer to re-engage. So then you didn't have good data, but now you can see that data. How's your win rate? All of that increasing, forecast, call, all of this, having all this data at your fingertips so that you can make the most informed decisions on what needs to happen. So when we think about the pipeline, when we think about all of this in these 6 strategies, really it's implementing and making sure that you have a process that can be consistent, that you have a way to identify risk, score opportunities, be able to surface data and have real-time data at your fingertips so that you can always see what's changing. How do we, what deals should I be counting on and what deals should I not? In what deals can we fix? But what deals are just a lost cause in inflating the pipeline and not giving us a false sense of security, which then is used to build our plans for next year. Because it's thinking sometimes in sales, we shoot ourselves in the foot because we have all this huge pipeline, which tells finance, oh, you've got all kinds of pipeline. So we can grow the business this year, not realizing, oh my goodness, you have all of these low scoring opportunities that are high risk that never had a shot, but now you have this huge, gigantic inflated number that you have to close. So using all of that to drive the business, drive revenue, and be more effective. So do we have some questions?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was just jam-packed with some incredible information. So thank you. We did have a couple questions come through. The first is, can you tell me a little bit about how exactly forecasting integrates with Salesforce?
Yeah, so we have a bidirectional sync, and we can bring in any data that exists in Salesforce. We can bring that into exactly forecasting and then write that back to Salesforce. So giving you a more efficient, effective way to engage with that data in allowing you to not be like, here's my reports that are in forecasting, here's my reports that are in this dashboard, in having it in disparate places, but allowing sales to say, this is where we run sales. And anyone who engages with the sales forecast can have their customized templates of the way that they engage with the sales forecast, not the way that sales leaders look at it, but the way finance looks at it, the way PS looks at it, the way that renewals looks at it, so that you're breaking silos down and all looking at the same data.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. And then our last question is, can you tell me a little bit about or more about the warning and alerts feature that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. So, the number one thing, that when you have deals in a forecast, the number one thing you need to understand is where's the risk? Where's the risk? What are things that we need to do to move deals forward? So there's some solutions that will have alerts, but they're not configurable. So everyone has a different sales process, a different selling methodology. So with our alerts, what this allows you to do is have best practices at your fingertips. These are actionable alerts, but it also allows you to configure the alerts around your process so that on day one, they are meaningful. It's driving your reps, whether they are, the way that an enterprise deal needs to be alerted in where risk is different than the way that an SMB deal needs to engage, is different than the way a cross-sell or an add-on. So being able to craft that easily with a drag and drop configuration that is meaningful to each segment of your business drives action, makes it more efficient and actionable. Reps need it to be easy to do it. You know that. So it's make it easy to adopt and easy to update, so that, hey, as I'm a rep, I'm like, if I complete these alerts, my manager's off my back. And like, sorry, managers, leadership, that's what reps want. They just want to work. They want you out of their hair. So they learn that, and it drives adoption big time.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you everybody for joining us today. We will have more webinars coming soon, so keep an eye on your email. And like I said earlier, this was recorded and you will be receiving the recording shortly. So thanks again, and I'll go ahead and end the webinar.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.